Today down in the comments, if you're a US viewer, or even if you aren't, wherever you live, I want to hear about your favorite horror movie set where you're from. If you're from New York, New Jersey, if you're from Texas, if you're from Montana, there's probably a horror movie set there, or there's probably been a horror movie filmed there. I want to hear about it. Hello, I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-Shirt, the channel where we talk about horror movies and then we pair them with a reading recommendation that you will enjoy if you like those movies. I'm the author of Clown in a Cornfield and the upcoming sequel, Clown in a Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives. And it's a YA slasher, and if you enjoy that kind of thing, if you enjoy the kind of movies we talk about on this channel, you will probably enjoy it. You'll probably get a kick out of it. And I have about 10 other books, novels, and novellas, paperback, ebook, audiobook, wherever you want to get them. Please pick them up. Please tell a friend. It's the way you can support this channel, beyond liking and subscribing, of course. Today, I was at a crossroads of kind of what to talk about. I had actually gone out to a press screening and I enjoyed the movie. I saw very much, but I didn't feel like there was a lot there to talk about, especially because, well, I'll just tell you, it was The Night House, the new David Bruckner movie. I liked it a lot. I think it's really great, but I'm so conscious of spoilers and I never want to talk about spoilers. All like the real super interesting stuff in that movie happens in the third act, and I didn't want to talk about the third act. I wouldn't want to spoil it. So that's my kind of endorsement for The Night House. But since I didn't want to make a video about that, I was kind of like, what do I do? And I just happened to watch two movies somewhat back to back that were both set in Texas and filmed in Texas with Texas crews, and they're kind of Texas regional horror movies. And they were both released from Vinegar Syndrome, so I'm like, you know what we're going to do? We're talking Texas. So today we're going to talk about Through the Fire and The Lamp. Both of these were somewhat recent Vinegar Syndrome releases. Actually, they might have been last month's releases. These are the slipcase nice editions. I will take off the slipcases when I talk about them, not to get my grubby fingerprints on them. And then we're going to talk about a very special Texas author when we talk the book recommendation this week. So let's start with The Lamp, shall we? The Lamp, you're probably, if you're at all familiar with this film, you're probably looking at this beautiful cover and this beautiful art, and you're like, where the hell has this movie been all my life? If you know it at all, you probably know it by a different title. And Vinegar Syndrome was kind enough to do a reversible cover with the kind of theatrical title, the somewhat very disingenuous title and cover of this movie. It was released in 87, 88 as The Outing. See, you recognize that one. Scream Factory even put this out in one of their kind of budget sets. This new Vinegar Syndrome edition is The Lamp. This is the version of the film as it was originally intended. It has the Lamp title card on it. This is directed by a guy named Tom DeLay, but he's kind of not the most interesting creative force behind this movie. It was the brainchild of writer-producer Warren Chaney, and then it's kind of a family affair because his wife, Deborah Winters, not only stars in the film, is kind of second lead in the movie, but she also was the casting director and is very much kind of, let's put this all together. The producers, the money people, everything about this movie was set out of Houston. It's all Texas locals. People are in the Houston area. The movie's set in Houston. Doesn't try to hide its like Houston roots. It is very much set in and around Houston. A huge portion of it takes place at the Natural History Museum they have in Houston. So it does have, even though it has a bigger budget compared to some of the things we talk about as like regional horror movies, it does have a real regional feel to it. But it is called The Lamp. It is a killer genie movie, a movie that they so badly wanted to hide the fact that this is a killer genie movie by calling it The Outing. The lamp is in the first scene, the lamp is in the last scene. This is a movie about a cursed lamp, so The Lamp is a much more appropriate title. It's a really odd film, odd in a number of ways, and not odd in a necessarily a bad way. Although I was talking to my friends after watching this, and I was kind of like, wow, The Lamp is 95% first act. It kind of is. It is a movie that has all these interesting, there's like a prologue sequence, and then there's like a prologue to the prologue sequence, and all these different things. And it's not a slasher movie, but it is a kind of pick teenagers off one by one type movie, even though they're being picked off by an evil genie, where the rules of the genie or why the genie is killing them, for as much exposition as we get, we never really quite get a clear idea of what the hell is up with the genie. But we don't even introduce those teenage characters until like a half hour into the movie, which these all sound like problems. These sounds like kind of like plot and pacing problems, but I do not view them that way. I really, really enjoy watching a movie. I was talking to my other buddy about this very recently, but I'm trying to crystallize why I talk so much about movies pre-modern era. Why? Like I watch modern movies. I enjoy modern movies. I'll be the first one when there's a new Fear Street movie on Netflix. I'll be the first one streaming it. But I don't make videos about them, and I don't talk about them as much. They're just kind of the thing that's like, oh, if you want to be in the horror zeitgeist, watch X and watch Y, and I watch them and I enjoy them. I enjoyed Jacob's Wife, which just recently came on Shudder. It's a new movie, and I enjoy new films. But overwhelmingly, I opt to make videos like this about movies from 87, 88. And I think a big part of that is there's a less of a homogenous feeling to them. There's less of a, as great as like the Sid Field screenplay book is, and the Save the Cat screenplay guides, as great as those things are, and as nice as they are to have as tools for the tool belt, they lead to a certain kind of homogeneousness in storytelling and structure. But you watch a film like The Lamp, and you're like, wow, this is really just almost more of a passion project on Chaney's part, where it's just, he sat down and he says in the special features here, there's a nice like 35-minute making of the movie. He talks about writing this movie in 2 weeks, and they do it, and they get it made. There's something pure about that, and the fact that he's the producer as well. This movie doesn't feel producer noted to death in ways that I'm sure people will watch this and almost get like a MST3K kind of attitude about them and want to like pick the movie apart and pick apart, like, why doesn't the genie show up for so long? Why, what's up with this bullying subplot that never seems to really come to a head the way you think it would? There's a lot of almost extraneous scenes about kids going about their day and driving around Houston and things like that. But to me, that's the appeal. That's the enjoyment, is that texture, that extra texture that a movie that isn't built by committee, that isn't noted to death. Yes, sure, those are better quote unquote products, but there's something about The Lamp that has real heart. And in this edition, there's a little note from Vinegar Syndrome in the beginning about how they couldn't get the negative for this movie, but they got an interpositive. And then when they were going through it, they noticed that a lot of the scenes were extended from where they were when the distributor kind of took this movie away from the people who had made it and cut it down and called it The Outing and tried to make people think it was basically a Friday the 13th clone. You saw that poster. It's Teenagers in the Woods, which The Lamp has like one scene in the woods, but it is not a Teenager in the Woods movie. Yeah, that's The Lamp. An enjoyable tour of Houston with quite a few, maybe like 10 or so kind of death scenes that are really, some of them are really inventive, some of them are really cool. There's a lot of neat stuff, especially in the opening especially in the prologue scene, I was going to say, but there's two prologue scenes. There's one prologue scene back in the 1800s in Galveston Bay where we see the lamp arrive in America, and then there's a second prologue scene where kind of lowlives steal the lamp from an old woman who has the lamp. They kill her with an axe. This isn't a spoiler. This is the first axe stuff. They kill her with an axe, and then she her body wakes up and pushes the one dude's head into the axe that's in her head. It's great. So that's the kind of movie you're getting when you get The Lamp. Highly recommend it. Vinegar Syndrome did a beautiful job, as always. The next movie we're going to talk about is Through the Fire, a movie I technically enjoyed more than The Lamp, but I'm pretty sure that most people will not. It is a rougher, more lower budgeted affair. It is close to a lower budgeted affair. Really interesting movie, shot in and around Dallas, and where The Lamp almost works as a come visit Houston. You can see the Houston Chamber of Commerce using The Lamp as look at our beautiful city. Through the Fire would not be used by the Dallas Chamber of Commerce. It's look how skeezy and terrible our city is kind of the vibe you get from Through the Fire. But it's that idea of a different perspective, a different tone, a different director looking at a city, at a state, and seeing a different thing. But Through the Fire is very briefly, very odd mishmash of genres. It is I would call it an action horror movie because there's a lot of shootouts, there's a lot of kind of 80s, late 80s action stuff to it. A woman's sister goes missing. It has something to do with these weirdo black magic cultists that also seem like local small business owners, that also seem like small-time crooks, that are using this Ouija board and using black magic to kind of get a leg up in life and get a leg up in business and get a leg up in certain things. They, as a side plot, they conjure some kind of golem or homunculus that is like going around Dallas and kind of, we're cutting away and it's killing random people. It's gotten away from them. But at the same time, the main plot is this woman trying to figure out what happened with her sister. And she finds out her sister was some kind of almost Buffy the Vampire Slayer type, like clandestine warrior for justice that was like trying to take out these black magic guys. She buddies up with a cop. This is an incredibly convoluted movie, and it's not long. This is an 80-something minute movie, but a lot of stuff happens in it. She buddies up with this. It's like almost a buddy cop movie because she partners with a cop who's like a real goofball, and they go around Dallas and they're trying to solve this mystery. It is awesome. It has, if you're a fan of like urban fantasy, like I even mentioned Buffy, but if you're a fan of like urban fantasy type movies where good versus evil in a almost action setting, Through the Fire is the movie for you. It is a really has a really interesting tone. Like I said, there is a kind of comedic relief character, multiple comedic relief characters. It's a different kind of film for most low-budgeted, no-budgeted action pictures in the late 80s that were kind of going straight to VHS when they were made by these regional crews. It's different in a way that like the comedy really works, is really funny. The action really works and the horror stuff really works. It kind of fires on all cylinders, even though you really do see the limitations when you see how this movie was made. This is another movie where the director, Gary Markham, this is the only feature that I saw on IMDb. It's another movie where he kind of got screwed on the home video release, where the movie did, according to him, according to the special features, the movie did well when it was released in Europe, when it was released overseas, but the deal that they signed in the US had this movie kind of taken away from them and re-edited and retitled, almost a more egregious retitling than The Outing, because this was called Gates of Hell 2, Dead Awakening. This was released as a sequel to Licio Fulci's Gates of Hell, and this movie has, other than hell, this movie has pretty much nothing to do tonally, stylistically, aesthetically, Italian-y, with the Gates of Hell. It has nothing to do with that. It was just an attempt to make a quick buck, and I cannot imagine renting this movie and how pissed off I'd be in the late 80s, early 90s, and being like, oh, there's a Gates of Hell too? And this is this Texas shot, very southern fried, very almost southern noir flavored action horror movie, buddy cop comedy, and I got Gates of Hell 2, and then I'm thinking I'm getting Gates of Hell 2. Boy, I would have been disappointed, but right now I'm definitely not disappointed because I really loved Through the Fire. Your mileage is going to vary with both of these movies, but you kind of know if you're a collector of this stuff, and if you've enjoyed some of the Vinegar Syndrome titles I've recommended in the past. I think these are pretty safe bets for anyone who likes those. And just a nice tour of Houston and Dallas, and feels different. Feels nice to watch a movie that's not shot in LA, that's not set in LA, that's not shot in Toronto, doubling as New York. Feels good to get some local flavor in this way. Today's book recommendation is a little bit different than the book recommendations I give in the past, because this isn't a book recommendation. This is an author recommendation. I was like, if we're talking about Texas, and we're talking about Texas regional horror, what book am I going to bring up? I've already talked about The Drive-In. I've already talked about that great Joe Lansdale book that I love a whole lot. It's probably my favorite novel. So let's not talk about a book recommendation. Let's talk about an author recommendation. Let's recommend the works of Joe Lansdale. This is some of my collection. This is some of my Joe Lansdale collection. If you only know Joe Lansdale from the adaptations of his work, like Don Coscarelli's great Bubba Hotep, which is a fantastic movie and actually is incredibly close in tone and style to something Joe Lansdale would write. If you only know him from that, or if you only know him from Cold in July, which was a great kind of neo-noir adaptation of one of his crime books, if you only know him from that, or from the Hap and Leonard TV show, which is on Netflix now, you really, 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 really owe it to yourself to read Joe Lansdale. Maybe suggest starting with one of the collections. By Bizarre Hands is a great one. This one, just to show off a little bit, this is a beautiful edition of this. It was signed to me. Look there, to Adam, Joe Lansdale. I've got a bunch of other fun stuff here. I've talked about I don't even remember what video I've talked about the drive-in in. There's a new edition of that whole trilogy that's really affordable. By Bizarre Hands might be slightly out of print now, but I think it's very easy to get on the second market. There's one called, what's it called? Sanctified and Chicken Fried. That's like a Joe Lansdale reader. You can start with Savage Season. You can start with the first Hap and Leonard book if you want to check out his crime stuff. He's an incredibly unique writer in how, to me, how easily he can swap tones and how easily he can bring comedy and horror and abject indignation at the human condition and also parody of the human condition. He is a fantastic kind of cross-genre writer, even sometimes within the same stories, even sometimes within the same pages of those stories. If you have not read Joe Lansdale, again, if you only know the adaptations, you're only kind of getting half the story. I would very, very much recommend checking him out, especially on this special day while we talk about Texas. Those are my book recommendations. I will put links down in the description for some of the stuff that I mentioned. I will put links down in the description to Vinegar Syndrome's website where you can get these movies. I will put links down in the description to Clown in a Cornfield and all my other books. Please go pick them up. I really appreciate everyone who's checked them out, who's bought a book, who's told a friend, who's bought a book for a friend. That stuff really makes my day, and it keeps this channel going, and thank you so much. I will be back next week. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Go follow me on Twitter. Go follow me on Instagram, and I will see you.